Hey everyone, it's Theo from Spectrum Gardening. I'll be talking today about overwintering artichokes. There are some types of artichokes that need to go to their cold period to actually produce flowers and to produce the buds from them. I grow Imperial Star, however, and that actually will produce flowers and produce buds in their first year of growth. One thing what a lot of people are shocked about, since I live kind of on the edge of zone 8A to 7B for temperature wise, they're always surprised that I can actually grow them here. Because typically they view artichokes as a Mediterranean plant, ones that will only grow in very hot climates. Well, yes, that is true, but you can actually grow them successfully in the lower mainland of British Columbia. The only thing is I have to be mindful of the winters that we're going to be having. If we have a really harsh winter, the cold will unfortunately kill my artichoke plants. But if we have a milder winter, I don't really need to do too much of them for them to successfully survive. That being said, even though there are signs of what kind of winter we might be having early in fall or late fall, it's kind of hard to predict. So I found in our climate, it's the best practice to mulch the artichokes over winter. So this year I planted them in the very front of our garden, in our front yard, in the front of the garden here. But this is not meant to be the forever home at all. When my wife was away, I couldn't really figure out what to do with this garden bed. We have plans to kind of shape it a little bit more and make a rock garden around it and kind of stick some other plants in there. But I couldn't really figure out what to do with it. So I just threw my artichoke plants in here just temporarily. But since we're well in our way in fall, and we're gonna be going into winter, I wanna get them out of here and I wanna get them into their forever home where they're gonna be growing back in our back veggie garden going forward. Because while yes, they produce beautiful flowers like this one right here, they get to be massive plants. And I'll be honest, the only pretty thing about these plants is the flowers. They're kind of big, spiky leaves on them, and they take up a lot of space. So I can understand why it's not my wife's first choice of having them in the front yard. And while I may not be mulching them today, I want to be getting everything ready. So right after a mild cold snap we might have, I will mulch them right away, and I'll be able to give them protection for the rest of the winter. So I'm taking a bit of a shelter in our greenhouse right now because, to be honest, it's really wet outside and it's not typically the type of weather I want to be gardening in. But it's, it's the time that I have to dig up the artichokes and to transplant them. And two, it's actually the best type of weather to be doing this type of work in because you reduce the chances of a transplant shock of whether it be artichoke, seedling, shrub, or tree that you're putting in. Before I transplant them though, I want to talk about a few exciting and interesting things about these plants. Well, at least they're exciting and interesting to me. One main thing is you can actually get additional plants from this one plant. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at this one right here, that looks like a side shoot. This looks like a side shoot. And I can tell already, this is a side shoot over here. This is going to be another plant. So what's going to happen is that this is basically going to act like a mother plant. And these side shoots are going to kind of be shot off to the side. And I'll actually get more artichoke seedlings just from this one plant. So it's too early to divide the plant now. And plus, I'm not sure of what's going to be surviving and everything like that. So I'm going to transplant this whole. And when it comes spring, I'm going to go back to this plant and I'm going to divide it. And I'll be honest, I'm going to sell those extras. Because if you've been following us for a while, either on YouTube or on Facebook, on Instagram, you know I sell seedlings. That's what we do. That's a big part of our business. So I'm going to divide these up and I'm gonna sell the extras that I have. If you're a home gardener, you can keep rejuvenating your artichoke plant, artichoke patch with these small seedlings because the mother plant is only good for X number of years. Another interesting thing that I find about these plants is like, look at this plant and look at the roots on this one. Look at how big they are. Or like this one over here. That's a massive root system for a plant like this. They're huge. And I'll be honest, I was kind of lucky. The patch that I had them planted in there, in the front, it had very soft soil, very loose. So I was able to dig them up quite easily. Otherwise, they can be quite difficult to dig up. I actually accidentally cut off some roots along here. That's also another reason why I'm not going to be dividing the plants, because I want to see what's going to survive and what's not. I'm sure some of you have seen artichoke buds in the store. When you they're actually picked before the artichoke can flower. When you let it flower, those buds will open up. They'll start to open, they'll start to loosen like this. And they'll open up and you'll get a flower like this. And it's a very beautiful flower. It's actually highly sought after in the floral industry. They use it quite often for bouquets and things like that. The pollinators, they love these flowers. In fact, every year, even despite us growing these plants for the artichoke buds, because we love to eat them, it's one of our family favorite foods, we leave a couple of these flowers just for the pollinators to have, because they draw so many of them to our garden. My side advice here is, if you struggle with pollinators in your garden, plant an artichoke plant. Put one in your garden and let it flower. And you'll be amazed of how many little bees and insects, or whether hoverflies and things like that, you'll see all over this. It will really do a great job of attracting pollinators into your garden. So enough chit chat. It's time to get these babies back in the ground. As much as I don't really want to be going out back into the rain out there, I kind of don't really have a choice at this point. You may have noticed when I was transplanting the artichokes in the garden bed behind me, I wasn't just putting soil in their hole. I was also putting this, and this is the manure that I'm topping up my beds with. This manure is a mix of manure, corn silage, wood chips, and some feed from the dairy barn. I'm topping up all my beds with it just to kind of give the soil a boost and just trying to kind of help amend it and give it a bit more food for next year. And I know artichokes are very heavy feeders. They require a lot of nutrition to grow and bloom. So that's kind of why I was putting them in the hole along with the soil. I was giving it a good mix. And I've taken this manure, I've kind of pushed it all around the edges of the artichoke plants. And that's good for now, but after our first mild frost, I'll be topping up, I'll be making kind of a little bit of a dome over each plant like this, like that, just to kind of give the plant a little bit more protection over winter. And after the danger of the last frost has passed, what I'll be doing, but before the plant comes out of dormancy, what I'll be doing is going back and pulling off my mulch. And I'll be checking to see if there's any sign of growth. And then come spring, I'll see what grows, and then I'll come back and divide my plants and decide which ones to keep. So I've actually kind of experimented well, by accident, I accidentally experimented overwintering artichokes one year. And when I mean accidentally, I mean I basically did nothing for them. I had one artichoke plant that was semi-protected by an overhang, and I had others just kind of out in exposed in my garden beds like this. And I have to say, the one under the overhang, even that mild winter that we had that year, it did way better in the spring. It grew a lot more, it was bigger, and it was a more productive plant compared to the ones that were exposed. Last winter, when we first moved up here, we had about 4 feet of snow, and we had moved all our plants in pots from Chilliwack up here. And I had beautiful artichoke plants. And for most of the winter, I had them kind of pushed up with other pots up against our house, and they got protection that way, and they were doing fine. And then once the snow melted, I thought I was going to transplant them, get them in the ground, and kind of give them a bit more protection. So I took the pots, and I put the pots on top of the garden beds, just kind of like the way the plants are, but not transplanted. And then we got a really bad cold snap. And that cold snap, there was no snow protection, no nothing. And we had really high gusts of wind. So because of that, those plants did die. But if I had not have put them out exposed to all the elements, if I had kept them in with all the other pots semi-protected, I probably would have been able to overwinter them no problem. There is also some effort into overwintering artichoke. Is it really worth the effort each year to overwinter them, or should you just start new ones? Well, I can't really ask that question. I can't really answer that question for you. You have to answer that question yourself. But I will have to say, they take a very long time to grow. I start my plants in February. And by the time I put them out in April, May, they're still in about 3.5 inch pots like this. They're very slow growers. And that's kind of why I've decided this year to kind of give them a little bit more attention, to protect them, to mulch them, and to see how I'll be able to be doing over winter for them. I've decided to use wood chips to mulch my artichokes. And before I mulch them, I will want to cut them back just ever so slightly, just so they're a few inches above the soil. So I could use a pruner to do that, or I could just use any sort of sharp knife. So with the artichoke sticking just a little bit above the soil line, I'm going to take some wood chips. I'm going to pile it nice and deep over the artichokes just to kind of give them a little bit more of insulation over the winter. If we do have a really cold winter or a cold snap, I might throw some plastic over them as well, just to kind of give them a little bit of more of a coverage, just to kind of prevent from the wind and everything like that. I would say the amount of mulch I put on here is anywhere between 6 to about 9 inches deep, plus or minus a little bit. And it should be more than sufficient if we do get a little bit of a colder winter this year. So I'm really wet now. It's been pouring rain the whole time I've been out here. I'm wearing about 4 or 5 t-shirts, 4 or 5 shirts under my rain jacket. And this isn't really fun anymore. I kind of want to head in to take a shower, throw my clothes in the washer dryer, and have a nice warm cup of tea. Thanks for watching. If you did enjoy this video, give us a thumbs up. I'd greatly appreciate it. And hit that subscribe button down below. And of course, if you know anyone that might find this video interesting, or you know someone that's overwintering or that's growing artichokes and is thinking about overwintering them, feel free to share this with them. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, throw them down in the section down below, and I will make sure to answer them.